been members of the society for the last years and we have adopted this philosophy. Most of all, we have experienced what was healing for us. Encountering our spiritual self through the practices of Omilos and through the encounter with people who acknowledge our true self was and still is healing for us. It has been guiding us both in our personal and professional path, helping us perceive therapy from a broader perspective. Therapy becomes an intimate encounter with the self through the following acknowledgement, as Dimitris Kakalides wrote in one of his poems. I am thou, thou are I, parts of the divine self. Forming a transpersonal identity as therapists has been based for us on this principle, that both the patient and I are one with the whole, and that the patient, although regarded to be ill, is in fact complete, though not aware of it. It has been a revelation for us to perceive therapy as an encounter with the self, with the true self, that aims at expanding consciousness of one's spiritual dimension. Through this revelation, we were able to experience the role of the therapist as a medium, as the one who facilitates the dialogue with the inner self. So we came to see that this is the essence of therapy, no matter the techniques one uses, to see the person beyond the problem. This is not something abstract or vague. It is to be able to respond to the restriction that the person feels with the constant and firm belief in the broadness in him and his ability to express it. And as the client sees himself through the eyes of the therapist, what he sees is his expanded self, his potential to be healthy and well. This is how he too can visualize himself healthy and self-fulfilled. He can experience the sense of broadness, of wholeness, in contradiction to the sense of confinement. So, how do we integrate this perspective in our work? Working with addicted patients, as well as with people with severe psychotic disorders, in the environment of a psychiatric hospital, is very stressful and involves a great deal of frustration. It is perceived to be high risk for developing a sense of emotional depletion and burnout. What we have experienced as exhausting and frustrating in our work there was mainly working with people whose basic human identity has been gradually deconstructed by the chronic illness or the addiction and by the long-term emotional and material deprivation, living inside the institution or on the streets. But also the following, facing death, frequently relapses and lack of progress, feelings of despair and inadequacy, working with burnt-out fellow colleagues, and so on. In face of all the above, but also as far as our private counseling practice is concerned, we have put in action the spiritual practices proposed by Omilos, and we have benefited in our work itself, as well as in our self-care. Through self-observation journaling, focused on the therapy process, we become more and more able to perceive and effectively handle transference and counter-transference issues. Practicing meditation, we experience how the therapist becomes a better listener of himself and the patient. This helps us in matters of balancing emotions, self-regulation, and in cultivating qualities such as empathy, openness, active listening, and an optimistic attitude towards the patient. We've come to see our practice as service, based on authentic concern for the person, and as such, to experience it as a natural response based on our non-dualistic nature. So, the benefits of this practice can be summarized in the following: acceptance, deeper caring, finding hope and meaning, and so on. We shall present now extracts from our own self-observation journal, which are related to the above. The first one was written a little time after I started working in the hospital in the psychosocial rehabilitation of chronic patients. Today, a nurse, said about the patients who get very dirty. I wish they just died. What's the point of living like this, just to make us suffer? I got very angry at her and the other colleagues who don't care. I felt frustrated and helpless. While meditating, I tried to balance all these emotions and I approached the situation from a different point of view. The staff who reject the patients reflect in fact the general attitude of humankind who suppresses the weak and unhealthy parts of itself. It reflects in fact the attitude of every person who nice sides of himself and of the others that he dislikes. So their attitude is no different than my rejection and anger towards them. And as it is needed for them to accept and embrace the patients, it is needed for me too to accept and embrace them, perceiving them as part of the whole. I worked upon this understanding through self-observation and meditation, and approached my fellow colleagues with acceptance and the stance to support them. The results were more than positive, and as they have said a lot of times all these years, they do feel supported and inspired. The following extract is from an incident in the acute psychiatric department. Today, a bipolar patient who was unwillingly submitted for treatment, attacked me and accused me of being responsible for her admission. At first, I felt awkward, and for a moment I got angry at her for attacking me when I am just trying to help her. When I observed that I was becoming defensive, I changed my attitude. I let her talk without saying anything. I focused on being open and accepting towards her and on understanding how she feels. I felt that she is very angry, mostly with herself for relapsing, that she feels desperate and is afraid that she is going to spend her life in the hospital. I thought that this doesn't have to happen, that she can make it. And I just told her, in a simple and sincere way. She looked surprised. She stopped talking for a moment and then asked me something about lunch. The next day we had a very calm and revealing conversation, and this was the beginning of a solid therapeutic relationship that lasts 7 years now, with ups and downs, but without any more obligatory treatments. While up to then she was unwillingly admitted every 2 or 3 years.
We have 2 more extracts. There are examples from the Department for Addiction Treatment, where I work. So the first is about a very cautious patient who is difficulty relating to others, who for a long time either caused the groups to stop or gave everyone a hard time. In the session, having knowledge of these aspects and functions through my own self-observation, I told him, many times I have difficulties that make me distant and introvert. But because I am responsible to help some people who rely on me, that is above my own problems, and that is what makes me focus not on myself, but on helping others. This way, my own difficulties become less important, they diminish, or they just don't matter. He then said, so, you propose that I should participate in all groups because I think of the others? I'll try and we'll talk. Indeed, he gave it an effort, and things have changed considerably. He participates in all groups without causing so intense problems, and as he says, I can stand the others more as they now seem less annoying. So the second example, one day at work, the colleagues were very angry at the group of patients because they continuously cause tensions. I started the group session with the inner stance that they are not problematic or disobedient, but actually they are people who identify with their difficulties because they are not aware of their spiritual nature. So at first they talked about the difficulties in their relationships. And then I told them, when I met you, I could easily like you or dislike you. So in one case, I would come to the group gladly and be young. But we're here to do something else, beyond likes and dislikes. This is what you need to choose. Whether you will keep repeating the usual egocentric patterns, or you will go beyond them and include other people in your lives. This steady response with a broader perspective brought relief and calmness to them. They said that having a vision of a world broader than the narrow limits of yourself helped them. The tensions calmed down, surprising the colleagues who had even expected violent manifestations from them. So, thank you for your attention.